Hello. So today, what I thought I'd do is, well, first let's take a look at the next competency 4 in and this one we're going to be using logistics regression. Or let's see, is that where we're at? I think we already did logistics regression. Oh, wait, yeah, logistics regression using gradient boost, a gradient boost classifier. So a little bit very similar to what we did before with logistic regression, which of course gives you an answer of basically a Boolean response. Does something happen or doesn't not happen? And so here in the section on demonstrate how to manually process data, again, I go through and I give you some links to gradient boost here. One thing to note is that it might be a good idea to click on and view this in YouTube.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help.
Simply because they provide some of the links in here that might be useful to get a better understanding of these. So if you look at the StatQuest site here, there are some other supporting tutorials and videos that may be useful to go through if those concepts don't make immediate sense when you're working through this. So here we can see, decision trees might be one, ADA boost might be one that you might want to look at, and then there's some other good resources in here to read, including a Wikipedia article. So as you've likely seen by now, basically what we're doing is we're taking a machine learning or statistics concept. We're trying to understand it as best we can. This is not a math class. It's not a statistics class. I just want you to go through here and get a basic understanding of what the technique is, because ultimately, Scikit or Pandas will have the tools to do this, and you'll just walk through the methodology that's provided to actually run this. And I'm not looking for you to have the most accurate results with your projects. I just want you to walk through the processes, build a project, deploy something to a website, and just get those fundamentals down so that you understand basically the process, not necessarily become an expert in it with one community college course. So we have to be realistic. And then, here you'll go through, and of course, you'll go through Chapter 4, and you're starting to probably see that these experiences are pretty repetitive. We go through, we grab, we do some graphing to look at the data. So there's a phase where we're looking at the data. Then there's a phase where we're kind of manipulating the data to make it a little better, to shape it into the thing we need. We're doing that with Pandas quite a bit. And then we're building a web app, based on really a formula or an algorithm that we came up with in the first part. So what I thought might be useful is, rather than going through this step by step, line by line, which you can do just by reading the book, is at this stage go through some of the tools a little bit more so that we have a little better understanding of them. So we see here, this is where we're using pandas to, make our split, and then, then we take that, and then from scikit, we're now, for this one, we're getting the gradient boosting classifier. In the other chapters, you got a different one. So here, what we're doing is we're grabbing this and setting some attributes that we need, which the tutorials from StatQuest, are there to help you understand kind of what these parameters are needed for. And then we call a fit function. So all these scikit algorithms have a fit method, and the fit method we pass in basically two tables, which in pandas are basically data frames, as they call them. We always have to have nice customized terminology to make things sound really, really cool. But really, what's a data frame? It's a table. So we're putting two tables of data and saying, hey, given this table, and given this results from this table which has the results from this one, fit the model to that. So, when you go through this, yes, you're trying to understand it, but we have an application that actually does this process. So the purpose of these videos are to understand it, so that when you get to this stage of the demonstration, you have an idea of what's going on. And then, eventually, what you'll have is an understanding of which model do you pick, what data do you get, how do you need to manipulate that data, and then you just pass it to the fit, and then you get a model. And then in this book, what they do is they show you how to take that model and convert it into something that we can use to display the relationship on the website. So how do I make that available? Here, how do I make a little display of the relationships where I can change these factors and we can see what the results are? So we have some inputs and the user can see some outputs. So, this could then become a tool for, say, a wine company. The people would go in there, they would measure all these things on a batch of wine that came out, and then they get an estimate on the quality score. And, maybe what that does is as they're monitoring, as they're going through and they're figuring out their process for making a wine, maybe that, there's things that we can control. We can control the level of sulfates. Maybe they rinse the containers before they put in the, so after they put the sulfates in to kill off residual bacteria, maybe they can create a process of using, absolutely pure water to clear out the residual sulfates in there. Or maybe they reduce the amount of sulfates down to the bare minimum they need in order to have the concentration necessarily to kill. Residual sugars, well, that's really a matter of how long you let the fermentation run. If you, and that to some degree is a relationship of how much what type of yeast you use. So if you use a yeast like a champagne yeast, it will leave very little residual sugar because it's going to consume, those yeasts stay alive to a very high alcohol concentration, and so they will consume more percentage of the sugars before the level of alcohol will kill the yeast. There's also, how much sugar you start off with. So even with a softer yeast, that may not, a sweeter yeast, theoretically, or one that's at lower alcohol content, what you could do is reduce the amount of starting sugar, and so you can manipulate all of these things. Acidity is something that you can control based on the types of grapes you have. There's lots of little things that can be done to manipulate this to increase the estimated quality. And these ultimately, these changes, you seek these optimum values. And then it comes down to a human being tasting the wine. And what we're estimating is that based on this analysis, we came up with some, you're coming up with some targets for a wine producer to aim at. And then the ultimate test is, does it taste good at the end? And then you have this independent variable, which is the wine taster's judgment. And so hopefully, if everything lines up well, you've guessed at some things that will make that wine score well. Now, if you want to extend this thought experiment a little bit, this is basically saying estimated quality score when you go across all judges. Now, what if we were to look at, could we extend this a little bit and pick pick the characteristic of the judge, maybe where they were brought up, or what the particular region where they primarily taste wine is located. That might affect what their preferences are. Are they actually a wine connoisseur, or maybe you would want to run the same sort of thing with maybe someone who's not a wine connoisseur? Or wouldn't it be valid to try it out with someone who's maybe just wants a nice table wine that will go with the dinner, in which case that would be a different set of judges, and it would be interesting to run this experiment with different groups of judges, i.e. different independent variables, to see how these different dependent variables, to see how these independent variables correlate with those different groups. And so you might have another thing here, another slider, which is the experience level of the judge, or maybe some checkboxes that would check off what the judge's background was, just average user. So, you randomly grab some people out of some stores, and you might pick those people, in different areas, the United States, they might have different preferences, or different countries might have different preferences of what they like, just based on what they grew up with and what what their interests are. And it would be interesting to see if, sometimes, oh, look, there's a wine that we would normally expect to do well here, but it actually does well in this other place. And that could inform maybe some marketing choices. So there's a lot of neat things that this gets to. So have fun with it. And I think this video really I'm going to use to is an introduction to this chapter. And then what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to get into you might have been doing these tasks and you kind of get it to work, but maybe pandas doesn't make a lot of sense yet, or maybe scikit-learn doesn't make a lot of sense yet. So I think I'm going to make a pandas video next, and then post that, and then I'll try to do a scikit one, and then and let you work through these tutorials. The book is pretty good at explaining or walking you through what's going on, but the fundamentals may be a little bit harder to understand. And then I think the last thing I want to do to help you out with this course is maybe go through some more of the web development part. So you probably got this to work, and then you've adapted this, this format to work with whatever you're working with, right? So you would maybe change these sliders to, whatever data set you came up with, and it would come up with, your own graphics. And you're working to manipulate that, and that works. But then I think what I'd like to do is go into Flask just a touch more. I may not be able to give you like a full up web development course, but at least point you to some resources and give you a better overall understanding of how the web part works, so that you can become more. You can get that a little bit more too. So that's where we're at, and hopefully everyone's still enjoying the course. This is some really neat stuff, and like I said, I'm not looking for you all to be top-level data scientists, with half a semester of a community college course. I'm looking for you to just walk through the processes and use your Python skills to do the fundamentals with it, so that you get an understanding with it. And I think what that will set you up for is that then you can keep researching this as you, after you take the course, and in your particular field, you'll settle in on a few tools that do what you need it to do, and you'll explore those and detail, and you might build a thing for for where you work or for something that you're interested in. And I think that's what will really get you in depth into this topic. So thank you very much, and have fun with Chapter 4.